The American wine business is shrinking. People are drinking less. Wineries are discounting bottles. Vineyards are being pulled out. But the decline is not happening evenly. In 2025, domestic sparkling wine volume fell 3.3%. Yet, the leading bottles priced above $15 slipped only 0.2%. Chandon held at roughly 488,000 cases. Mumm Napa grew 6% to 354,000. So why, during a wine downturn, are consumers still paying more for bubbles? This story begins with reporting from Shanken News Daily. And the answer is not that sparkling wine is recession-proof. It is that some bottles still give people a reason to care. $15 is not luxury. It is the point where this market begins to separate inexpensive party fizz from a more deliberate purchase. Think of 3 floors, under $15, volume, mixing, and large gatherings, roughly 18 to 50. Premium California sparkling, where producers such as Mumm Napa, Chandon, Roe de Rare Estate, Schramsberg, and Iron Horse compete. Above that, vintage wines, prestige cuvées, champagne, and scarcity. The most resilient space is the middle floor, expensive enough to feel meaningful, but attainable enough to open without receiving a promotion or marrying someone. Sparkling wine has one advantage that still wine often does not. It sells an event. A weeknight bottle can be removed from the budget without changing the evening very much. Bubbles announce that somebody arrived, finished something, turned another year older, or decided Tuesday was unnecessarily dull. Call it occasion insurance. One bottle can serve several people. The cork creates theater, and the first pour changes the room. Nobody opens sparkling wine because they want the evening to feel slightly more economical. When the purpose is emotional, the very cheapest bottle can undermine the purpose. But emotion alone does not justify a higher price. Better sparkling wine can cost more because it asks for unusually precise farming. Grapes are generally picked earlier than they would be for still Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. The farmer is chasing a narrow window. Enough flavor, high natural acidity, modest potential alcohol, clean skins, and freshness that can survive a second fermentation and years in the cellar. Pick too late, and the finished wine may feel broad and tired. Pick too early, and it can taste thin and aggressively sour. The bubbles are created in the cellar. Their energy is grown in the vineyard. At Mumm Napa, the official method begins with cooler vineyard sites and careful early harvest. Grapes are pressed slowly and gently. The first, most delicate juice is separated from later press fractions that carry more tannin. Base wines are fermented. Then the winemaking team may taste between 100 and 180 individual lots before constructing the blend. That is already more complicated than making one good still wine. The producer is building balance before the wine has bubbles. Then the bottle becomes a tiny pressurized winery. Yeast and sugar are added to the blend. A second fermentation happens inside the sealed bottle, so the carbon dioxide cannot escape. The wine rests on spent yeast cells, gaining creamy texture and aromas that can suggest toast, pastry, or nuts. Bottles are riddled so the sediment moves into the neck, then disgorged. Dosage adjusts the final balance. The bottle is corked and allowed to recover. Time on lees means inventory sitting in a cellar, more handling, and revenue delayed. That does not guarantee quality, but it is a real cost. So what should a consumer look for? Not simply a famous label or the smallest bubbles. Compare an inexpensive domestic brut, a premium California traditional method wine, and a vintage or prestige bottle. Look for aroma complexity, freshness, dryness, bubble texture, length, and what happens after 5 minutes in the glass. Does the more expensive wine reveal citrus, orchard fruit, biscuit, nuts, or a longer finish? Or do you simply prefer the cheaper bottle? Price can buy better fruit, more blending choices, longer aging, and finer handling. It cannot command your palate to be impressed. Mumm Napa is the clearest business case. The house was established in California in the late 1970s and traces its heritage to G.H. Mumm in Champagne. Its Devaux Ranch estate in Carner-Aux covers 110 acres planted to Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Pinot Gris, and Mumm says it works with more than 50 growers each harvest. The range moves from accessible non-vintage bottles toward vineyard and prestige releases. In April 2026, Trinchero acquired Mumm Napa, adding a nationally recognized sparkling house to a portfolio where domestic premium bubbles had played a limited role. That acquisition is not proof that sparkling wine will automatically grow. It is evidence that a large California producer saw strategic value in the category while much of wine was contracting. Trinchero did not buy Mumm Napa because wine sales were booming. It bought a brand with production expertise, a Napa destination, national distribution, and a visible price ladder during a difficult market. The bet is that consumers still want credibility and craftsmanship. As long as the bottle remains approachable enough to buy, Chandon illustrates a different strategy. Do not only defend the old ritual, expand the occasions. Alongside traditional Brut and Rosé, Chandon has pushed into ready-to-serve spritzes built around orange, berry, and lemon flavors. They are designed for ice, brunch, aperitivo, outdoor gatherings, and casual food. That moves the brand between wine, aperitif, and cocktail culture. The critical question is whether this dilutes premium sparkling or recruits new drinkers. The likely answer is recruitment. A spritz lowers the expertise barrier. Traditional Brut, vintage releases, and hospitality can then provide a path upward. This creates an accessible ladder. A consumer can move from basic Brut to Rosé or Blanc de Noir, then to a vineyard-designated wine, a vintage release, or a prestige cuvée. The jumps are often smaller than they are in Champagne. That matters when consumers are drinking less but still want a visible upgrade. The proposition is not, spend more because the label says so. It is, spend a little more and see whether the bottle gives you finer texture, greater complexity, or a more memorable experience. Quality, however, is no longer enough if nobody knows the story. Catherine Cole has written in Decanter about historically guarded estates becoming more communicative, improving digital access, and investing in hospitality. Luxury now requires two apparently contradictory conditions. Consumers must know the product exists, and they must believe it is not available to everyone. The old luxury model was, you cannot buy this. The new version is, let us show you exactly why you cannot always buy this. That tension explains why deep discounting can be dangerous. A prestige bottle marked down repeatedly teaches the consumer that the original price was artificial, scarcity was imaginary, and waiting is rewarded. Some producers would rather reduce a release, hold inventory, or keep wine in the cellar. But withholding wine is expensive. Storage, insurance, financing, and delayed cash flow. And refusing to sell does not magically create prestige. A struggling, unknown winery with a full warehouse has not invented scarcity. It has invented a storage problem. Premium California bubbles occupy an unusually useful psychological space. They can offer cool climate farming, traditional method craftsmanship, recognizable producers, hospitality, and a genuine sense of occasion without requiring champagne-level spending. They also work across formal celebrations, brunch, aperitivo, and the increasingly important category of we felt like opening something good. That flexibility helps explain why the middle tier is holding up better than cheap domestic fizz. The wine downturn has not disappeared. Even sparkling wine lost volume in 2025, but consumers did not stop making choices. They appear increasingly willing to skip a forgettable bottle and preserve the one that feels like an occasion. The wineries that succeed will have to explain who grew the grapes, why the wine took years to make, and what the extra money actually buys. They must be visible without becoming ordinary, accessible without becoming cheap, and celebratory without waiting for New Year's Eve. Perhaps the future of wine is not convincing people to drink more. Perhaps it is giving them a better reason to open the next bottle. What is the best American sparkling wine you have tasted? And at what price does champagne become worth the upgrade?